So Kamal Khalzi became the third different winner yesterday and starts from pole position for race 2 of the weekend. Aaron Smith alongside, then Tom Langford and Will Antrobus with Alistair Dendy and Scott Wright on row 3. Fourth row lead, Dendy Sadler and Sam Middleton ahead of Jim Barrett and Martin Tolley to complete the top 10. Then it's Steve Kite for Misty Racing with his teammate Rob Way alongside him. Then Richard Moore and Alex Jones with Graham Rumsey and Christopher Ginn on row 8, row 9, Jonathan Christie Rundle, and then you get the 2 Mark 4s of Si Hui Wang and Ben Taylor at the tail end of the field, the 2 Paul Sheehan Motorsport prepared cars, which are entered into the Mark 4 trophy, which the BRSCC continuing to try and push to get more of the newer shaped Mazda MX-5s, the newest shaped Mazda MX-5s racing here in the UK. So the stage is set for an entertaining race, Scott. What do we think? Can Kamal Khalzi get another race win? Can Dan Parron-Smith get a first win? Or can Tom Langford and Will Antrobus put yesterday's disappointment behind them and start scoring some good points again?
Yes to all 3, I think. There's
There are going to be 4 different winners, are there?
Well, there's potential for one of these, genuinely, it's obvious thing to say, there's potential for one of those 4 to definitely go ahead and take the victory. Obviously the question is which one, but they're all in the mix. I think definitely in this league group that we've got for this season, at least everyone on the first 3, if not 4 rows, has got the potential to go ahead and pick up a victory. But of course, with any competitive championship towards the front, it's just a case of, it's easy said than done, trying to pick a winner, trying to just grab a name out of the hat, to try and figure out, you pick a name and you feasibly possible they could actually take a win. And that's the Dendy's one that also intrigues me as well. Of course, he would have got a podium had he not, overall podium, had he not had the penalty, but he's always been there or thereabouts. He hasn't won an outright race. Of course, before yesterday's win for Kelsey, none of the top 3 in that pro class had won an outright race in SuperCup. So Kamal Kelsey's broken that. So we've still got the likes of Parron-Smith and Dendy who will have a good opportunity to do so. I think it'll be quite intriguing to see how Steve Kite gets on. I have to admit, I didn't see that he was Rob Way was in the same team as Steve. So those 2, whilst they were in different classes, they're having a nice fun on-track battle, inter-team battle between them. Of course, then Steve managed to pick up a nice, strong victory. No, he didn't, in fact. It was Jim Barry who won club class yesterday from Steve Kite, and then from Richard Moore, who picked up a podium, which is good to see. I think it might have been one of his first podiums of the season. No, it wasn't. He's picked up 2 this season, because he took in the first 2 races at Stetton. That was on his debut weekend in the Super Cup in class. He hasn't podiumed since then until yesterday, so he'll be wanting to try and put that one right where he can. You can see on all the on the number plates on the back, apart from one car, which I might have to go and tell them off in the in the paddock later on, all Donington, Clapham North stickers. Of course, that will run by, according to my stats, and I'm sure he's watching, so he might appreciate this, the most experienced driver in MX-5 Super Cup history, Mr. George Grant, has 186-87 starts, so literally he has done more Super Cup races than anybody else, and of course still gleefully supporting the championship as title sponsor. Of course, based in London, and of course they've got other activities, not just supporting the championship, but also supporting racing in the Fun Cup Endurance, which they'll be with next weekend. He'll be racing with another MX-5 Super Cup graduate former champion, some very fast lady racer called Abby Eaton, who's been quite quick. In fact, it was here at Donington 2014 where she infamously, in terms of won her first overall championship. She was, I think, a Dunlop Sport Max production class champion a couple of years before that, in the early years of her career. But it was here at Donington at season finale, where I was here actually, covering it for, I think, Downforce Radio, live on the radio coverage for them. I was stood in one of the hospitality things overlooking turn 1, and I actively saw the incident which saw her being punted around at Redgate Corner, which she thought had lost to the championship, but because she'd scored the fastest lap of the race, and that gets awarded regardless of whether you finish or not, but Tom Roach, she was battling for the championship that year in 2014, didn't get the position and therefore the points he needed to overhaul that. So even though she retired, and if you watch this onboard footage somewhere, you can see she was visibly in the car, dejected and upset when she pulled in. And also there's some expletives which she mentioned on board after being made contact with, which I can't repeat on screen, otherwise I'll be lynched, where she felt she lost the championship, but then because she didn't score the point, she only found out post-race that, yeah, the fastest lap point saved her from winning that title, which she did in 2014, and that set her off on a trajectory to where she is now. Of course, she's actually racing over at Brands Hatch in the Bernie's V8s Ford versus Chevy, active in a rather nice 1968 5.7 litre Chevy Camaro, and she even stuck it on pole yesterday by 3/10. So she's a pretty fast lady, and of course she was a leader in the MX-5 in the Fun Cup race at Stetton for the first stint, at 1.3.5 seconds out in front, and racing away without a care in the world. Fantastic first stint, and proved she's a mega talent, and came from MX-5 Super Cup. So looking to try and be another graduate. And there's quite a few Mazda MX-5 SuperCup drivers that now found their way into Fun Cup, like Will Chambers, Tom Roach. We even had a debut lot of the previous race of both Jack Harding and Alan Henderson, of course, back champion 2015, who was a dominant driver in that point. So it's a good step up, a good platform for anyone to move up into that championship. And good to see that, again, Clapham still supporting it, and the category still as competitive as it ever was, regardless of grid size. And of course, with the Mark 4s coming in, it's also the bit to bring more and more cars in as we go forwards and make it more of a competitive championship in that sense. So, as you said, Kamal Kelsey could be looking at win number 2. Dan Parra-Smith would love to give what we firmly believe is the ex-literal Aidan Hills 2-time title-winning car in MX-5 SuperCup Pro a victory. But of course, as you say as well, Will Antrobus, who is doing a double duty this season, both in Genetta GT Championship, not Academy, GT Championship, and MX-5 SuperCup, so it's a nice race if you can get it. And Tom Langford, of course, who's determined to do so. I saw on social media he's been announced and confirmed as an ARC Raceway athlete, which is quite nice. He's getting some good sponsorship and partnership with them. I think there must be still a little bit more recovery going elsewhere for another Fiesta somewhere, because this starts late.
There's barrier needed repairing. I think that was a bigger hit than we realised at first, actually. There was quite a lot of damage done to the front of the car, and I think the tyre wall needed to be fixed. But the start line marshals are closing the gate now and are about to wave the drivers off onto the green flag lap. So hopefully this will be worth the wait. The Fiesta race was definitely worth the wait that we had after that delay at the end of the CNC Head Sports Saloon race. So hopefully the MX-5 Super Cup drivers will provide, again, some entertainment for us to enjoy. But first, the matter of a green flag lap to try and get some heat into the tyres, take a look at the track conditions, get a feel for this wind that continues to blow across the Donington Park venue. So Kamal Kelsey with Dan Parra-Smith. You can tell Dan Parra-Smith's car, he's got the sort of Aidan Hills livery, essentially, with the orange stripe and the orange rear end. But there's a lot of blue at the front of this grid. The top 4 cars are predominantly blue. Tom Langford and Will Antrobus likewise together on the second row. There are the 2 Mark 4s at the back, and it's the orange one that I think we really need to keep an eye out for. Zihuai Wang in the orange number 76 example. And that car is more than capable of challenging for a podium finish. He was helped by track limit penalties for people yesterday. I knew there was something that had happened that invited him into the battle for the victory, and it was those track limits penalties for the leaders. Hopefully they can avoid a similar thing in race number 2, and we'll wait and see whether he's still able to put himself into contention for a win. So cars make their way around McLean's corner very vigorously for a couple of them. That was one car, Scott Wright, I think, getting very sideways through McLean's, trying to generate some rear tyre temperature. It isn't cold today, but it's not quite as warm as we've been used to over the last couple of weeks, in fairness, so the drivers do have to try and put some energy into the tyres to give themselves the grip they need when the race gets underway. So Kamal Kelsey leads the field down into the chicane. Yellow flag waving in front of our camera lens there. And
is that foreboding?
Yeah, well, yes, I do worry. But there's a high level of driving standards in this championship normally. They're well used to close quarters racing. That's what Mazda MX-5 racing is about. So they know how to do this. I do expect a lively race, but hopefully we don't see too much yellow over the course of the next 20 minutes.
So cars lining up. As I said, 2 classes, technically 3 classes in this championship. Pro class for the faster drivers in the field, if they feel they have the pace. Club classes for the more, for those either just starting out in the championship and feel they might not have exactly the pace to be towards the front, but also as well for the more, I don't like using the word amateur, because it implies they have no ability. I like to use the word enthusiast. I'm sure someone could call it an enthusiast class in some case, but because they like to go racing for the sake of it. And of course there's a masters class, which is overarching for both any class drive, which is for drivers aged 45 or over. And of course points being offered in all 3 of their separate points tables as well. The 2 Mark 4s are at the back of the field, so I think they're ready to go Mazda MX-5 Super Cup racing, sponsored by Clapham North. And Mark 1's put on quite a good show yesterday. Let's see if the Mark 3s to kick off today's Mazda actually do just that.
I think they will. The red lights are on. The red lights are off. We're racing at Donington Park. Good start by Langford, was that maybe, from the middle of row 2. He certainly jumped quite quickly, but actually it is Will Antrobus, I think, from the outside of the second row, who's had the best of the starts. It's going to be Kamal Kelsey that leads into Redgate Corner. 3 abreast nearly for second place. Dan Parent-Smith, I think, will come out of that on top with the second spot down the hill as they accelerate towards the crane occurs for the first time. Indeed he does. It's then Langford and Antrobus debating third. Langford on the left, Antrobus on the right, and Alistair Dendy there, the white and blue car, in fifth. A lot of curb and grass taken there by Antrobus down the hill. Took a floppy marker post with him as well, but manages to slot back in line behind Langford. So it's grid order for the top 5 or so as they accelerate out of the old hairpin for the first time, and it is Kamal Kalsi who manages to hang on to the early advantage.
Yeah, up towards McLean's for the first start racing speeds. Almost a replica of what we saw yesterday. Kamal Kalsi with his teammate Dan Parent-Smith tailing him through McLean's. Now they run up towards Coppice for the first time. It's a very sort of un-SuperCup, like more civilised first lap at the moment, he says, tentatively with bated breath, as they come through one by one after the other. There's Chris Ginn in car number 20, chasing after Rob Way. Way was, I think he raced this championship far back as 2014, 2015. Took a break for a while, then came back after a few years. Showed he lost not that much of his pace, particularly in club class. Into the chicane they go for the first time. So Kamal Seek with Parent-Smith glued onto his bumper. Then it's Antrobus up to third now. He's passed Langford somewhere off camera, so he's got through past the AB Motorsport man. Down the pit straight they come for the first time. Dendy holds fifth with Middleton and Scott Wright, former club class champion himself, now in pro class standing in seventh. And it's Dendy Sadler, Tolley and then Steve Kite, the leading club class drivers. He leads that category just ahead of Jim Barrett. And then you've got Chris Ginn in third place in that class and Graham Rumsey. And the 2 Mark 4s have come from the back of the field with a Rose gap. Jihai Wang up to 15th on this opening lap, with Ben Taylor trying to keep pace with him in, well, he was 16th, but I think he's been passed by, I think Jihai Wang has passed Graham Rumsey, so now he's between the 2 Mark 4s. Ben Taylor's a black machine running now in at 17th.
Yes, he is. So out of the old hairpin we go for the second time. And interesting, isn't it, that Kalsi and Parent-Smith are getting away here? I shouldn't be surprised, really. They outqualified Langford and Antrobus, who are the 2 slightly more experienced drivers of that group, but they're actually gapping the third-place battle ever so slightly on this second lap of the race, up towards Coppice Corner. Maybe that gap now starting to come down, and certainly with the slipstream down the exhibition straight, you would imagine they'll all be pretty much back together again by the time they arrive at the chicane. Side by side further back, and that is Middleton to the inside of Alistair Dendy. This is for 5th position, and Sam Middleton, I think, is going to get that done as he's got the preferred inside line for the chicane. He is later on the brakes and does indeed move into 5th position. So change for 5th, the leading 4 together now as we come through to the end of lap number 2.
Let's look at Jihai Wang's progress. I think he's higher than 15th now. He's behind Robert Way, up to 13th. He's past Rumsey and also past Chris Ginn. Parent-Smith going for the move. This is what he needs to try and get his first win. Up the inside he goes. It's now 3 Hills Motorsport cars for the podium places. Which order they're going to sort themselves out in remains to be seen. Antrobus now trying to squeeze up the inside for second place. Squeezing the way through. And now looks like Langford wants to get involved in it too. He's now softening Kalsi right to the back. So yesterday's race winner has literally, in a blink of an eye, gone from first down to 4th. He's been passed by Parent-Smith, Antrobus and by Langford all the way through. And another place gain looks like for Wang. He's up to 12th past Robert Way. Next target's Jim Barrett. You've then got Ben Taylor with Graham Rumsey on his tail. So Rumsey's passed. Rumsey's lost another place. He's now ahead of Chris Ginn. So Rumsey's falling backwards. Now, of course, the top 4 nose to tail for the lead. Middleton is holding station in 5th. Of course, he was prominent in the club class last year. He was on the pace immediately as a front runner. I think he even, in his first weekend last season, ended up on the reverse grid pole draw on pole position for his 3rd ever race in the championship, and was leader briefly in that category. He's going to start to close in. He's got both Dendy and Scott Wright to close in on them as the 4-car battle, all of which are blue MX-5s, different shades and colours, going through the chicane. And Parent-Smith then, in the Aidan Hills machine, winds his way through in the lead. So, as we mentioned, he hasn't yet won an MX-5 SuperCup race. The 3 drivers behind him have. And Sam Middleton, who has, I think, scored a couple of podiums, but not a victory, is also in there too. It's 5 for the lead. Could be 7 or even 8 if the 3 cars behind start closing in. As for Jihai Wang, he's making moves in the background as Langford goes for second around the outside of Antrobus. Middleton wants to get in the fight as well. He's now trying to bully Kalsi down to 5th position if he can. And it's Dan Parent-Smith in front of a 2x2 situation. Antrobus slots into 2nd, still wheel to wheel as Langford takes to the curb. Kalsi's back to the inside for 3rd, and it looks like Langford now is the one that's off the momentum and off the racing line. He's now lost out to Kalsi and to Middleton over the curb on the exit. A little bit of dust kicked up, and Scott Wright's also giving Dendy the push. He goes through with this contact. Round goes Dendy, tagged around by Wright. Thankfully, he had enough right lock on to hold that car in not much of a slide, but he's now right out of contention and right down the order outside the top 10. That was a scary moment.
Yeah, not a nice place to be tapped sideways, that is it. So luckily, no major damage done. I think it has dislodged the exhaust slightly on the Mazda Dendy car, so he may well have to pit to get that seen to. Zihai Wang here coming charging through the order because the lead battle is a bit more intense today than it was yesterday. He's been waved through, look, as they go down into the chicane. So Wang is really on a charge, because the leaders are holding each other up a lot more now than they were yesterday. I think he's going to be with them by the end of the next lap. So a Mark 4 victory definitely on the cards in race number 2. This is definitely a more intense battle than we had in race 1. Darren Parron-Smith for much of that race was content to sit behind Kamal Kalsi, you felt, but he made the early move this time, and that's rather set the tone over the first 6 minutes of racing. Out of Redgate Corner they go, and Parron-Smith then leads the way. Androbus second. And it's side-by-side look for fourth there as Middleton gets up alongside Tom Langford. They're side-by-side through the Craners, but Langford will just about hang on to that. Alistair Dendy into the pit lane. And that's not a huge surprise. As I said, I think there was damage to the back of that car. The exhaust looked to be a little bit loose from what I could see. And so the team will have to give that some attention. Group though up towards McLean's corner, bumper to bumper, but the trouble is, Scott, that you're scared to make a move here just in case it doesn't work and you leave the door open for 2, 3, maybe 4 cars behind to come through. Wang is definitely a part of this fight now. It's 6 cars for the lead.
Yeah, he's right in the lead group now, and there's every chance, you absolutely said, he's caught them in less than 7 minutes, so there's a great chance he could well put himself in the lead fight. In fact, he will do, and of course he has the fastest lap of the race. His best lap was a 121.814. Everyone else in all their battles have only managed the best between them of 122.147 for Andrew. And Wang's gone for how many cars is that? 1, 2, 3 cars down the back straight. He's got past both Middleton and Langford. Zihai Wang on an absolute charge. Of course, he's an invitation car and he's in the Mark 4. He won't score any points, so it won't disrupt points-wise, but it'll disrupt their races physically. He's now going for third place down the outside. He's got some poke in a straight line down towards it, and also better braking into Redgate Corner. Antrobus takes the lead. Wang takes third from Kalsi, so shuffling around, but Parron-Smith gets a better undercut on the run through Redgate Corner. They will go side by side and goes back through. Antrobus wasn't going to go side by side through them, but the pace that Zihai Wang has got in this Mark 4, he's straight onto the back of the top two, a battle amongst themselves. I think you're absolutely right. With about 12 and a bit minutes to go, a win for this Mark 4 is absolutely 100% possible on the cards.
Yeah, it's clearly the quicker car, isn't it? The newer car, as you would expect, with a bit more pace. It's not supposed to be the same performance as the Mark III. It is designed to be a faster car, and Zihai Wang is really demonstrating that here this morning. Gets to the inside now of William Antrobus up at McLean's. That's for second in the race, and actually the sooner he gets the lead and clears off, the sooner the Mark IIIs can really start focusing on battling each other again. This is interrupting slightly the battle for the win within the Mark III class, if you like, and indeed the battle for maximum points. Langford now giving a bit of a shove to Antrobus down the back straight. Is this Wang for the lead? He's going to look for the inside into the chicane. Dan Parron-Smith, though, entitled to turn into the corner, did turn into the corner, and hangs on for now, but you sense that this is a case of when, not if, isn't it?
Yeah, Wang, he did lock up into the final chicane, but now with the pace he's got, well, there's something smoking on the back of that car, I can see.
Yeah, I don't think it was a lock-up, was it?
No, maybe not. It could be something rubbing. There is a bit of bodywork that's maybe the front left is a little bit of a dent on it, but we'll wait and see. So now Zihai Wang does indeed take the lead. We're not too surprised by it because of the pace he's got. And the question's got to be now is, now he's got clear track in front of him, can he start pulling away, or will he start to bring the leaders with him? Yeah, something's smoking. It's rubbing rather than mechanical smoke on the back, but that Parron-Smith is keeping with him with a good run through the old hairpin. The rest of the pack goes through. We look further back to see the other Mark IV, which is having a battle with, or trying to get away from, the 3 Mark IIIs behind him. That's Graham Rumsey in the 45, Richard Moore in the 16. He's going for a move, possibly into the old hairpin. And Chris Ginn, and that's about the 13th back to 16th towards the rear of the field, but Ben certainly enjoying himself with a fun fight towards them. We look back to this battle. Just ahead of them there is Lee Denny Sadler, who is in 12th position. Of course, Lee Sadler, former Fiesta and BMW Compact Cup racer. As they go through into McLean's for what's now the 7th time of asking.
Yeah, they do. Towards Coppice Corner, highest point of the circuit, blind right-hander. And especially with a bit of a crosswind up there today, that can catch people out in lightweight cars such as these. But they all keep it on the straight and narrow. The leaders across the line. And Wang, interestingly, isn't getting away, is he? Now that he's punching a hole in the air for everybody else, he's not really gapping the cars behind. Antrobus leads, essentially, in the battle for the race win points, but for no longer, because Dan Parron-Smith gets to his inside again. He likes that inside line at Redgate, does Dan. It's not the first time that he's taken the lead through that corner, and he does so once again. Just manages to squeeze across in front of Antrobus. with Kamal Khalsi now third, but Khalsi sideways down the hill. And just about gets back in line in front of Langford and Middleton. They've dropped the next group of cars a little bit now. Sam Middleton, though, good to see him a part of the battle for a race victory in this one. Finished 5th yesterday, but was a little bit adrift of the leading three. And now very much part of the fight. They round McLean's again, head towards Coppice Corner, and now maybe Wang is starting to get away, and that's bad news really for Dan Parent-Smith, because he's losing the slipstream from the car ahead, and he's now going to have to defend what is essentially the race lead as far as he's concerned, without any extra assistance.
Certainly improving the pace of the Mark IV as well as he starts to pull away a little bit. But this is now, of course, the big fight we've got going on for the Pro Class lead. Oops, that's the 60 that's gone around. That is Jonathan Christie-Rundle, who also has a 5-second track limits penalty, which will be applied at the end of the race. Out on the chicane they go. This is on to end lap 8, and the gap is now 1.2 seconds out in front as Antrobus looks to the outside to get the run. He'll get a small side draft in the approach. Does the last minute switch to the inside, so he's forcing Parent-Smith to defend. Puts him on the outside line. Antrobus cleanly moves through into the Pro Class lead, and Khalsi also squeezes through to defend from Langford. Middleton also in the mix as well. You can see if Middleton can squeeze his way up here. Of course, he might benefit from 1 or 2 skirmishes. But you've got here, literally in the Pro Class, 3 Hills Motorsport cars of slightly different shades of blue. We're trying to figure them all out in first, second, and third. Langford making things even equally trickier to work out, of course, with his equally blue MX-5 car. And you've got the anomaly in the pack, which is the white and pink of Sam Middleton in 5th position. That Mark IV still smoking in front. It must be something rubbing rather than anything else than mechanical, because it's not consistent. It's kind of on and off intermittent on every single lap. And Chris tried to have a look at McLean's, but now he's left the door open for Khalsi to have a look through. Coppice they go, and that's Richard Moore off the road, another car that's had an excursion down at the old hairpin. He ambles back onto the circuit from what was 14th. He's lost some pace. Somebody else off. Who's that? That is Antrobus. The championship leader off the road. Now, of course, adjusts his wing mirrors a little bit, nudging the way he goes. And Middleton's now gone up to 3rd. So something must have happened there, I imagine, between, I'm going to guess, Khalsi, Antrobus, and maybe Langford, because Langford slipped behind Middleton, and that was definitely up towards a Coppice, obviously, but as the camera missed it, I guess the big question was, did he jump or was he pushed?
Well, the fact that he was putting his wing mirror back out again suggests that he was pushed, doesn't it? He's had a little bit of contact, I think, down the right-hand side from who I don't know. Can we see any other folded-in wing mirrors maybe on the left-hand side of any of these lead cars? Well, there is one on Steve Kite's car, but I don't think it was him. He's gained a lot of ground out of all of that, though, and he's bringing with him Scott Wright. So we lose one car from this lead battle. We could gain a few more, as Kamal Khalsi's car was smoking there, as in the compression through the Craner curves. So maybe a little bit of bodywork rubbing on the right-hand front corner. There is your race leader. There is the battle for the lead in the Pro Class, though. And Dan Parent-Smith, with this narrowest of advantages, just can't get away. He's running a bit wide again through McLean's corner. And Kamal Khalsi would love to try and find a way past, but Sam Middleton very much buying into this now. And he's been just methodically picking his way through the order, whilst the others have been battling quite hard. Sam Middleton seemingly just picking his opportunities, and he might be about to get another one, because there was a big squeeze there from Parent-Smith as they went down the back straight. Need to see the leaders, really, as they head towards the chicane, because Dan Parent-Smith, yes, is having to defend, and now Middleton comes to the outside for essentially second place. There's a bit of a rub there with Khalsi, though. Langford could benefit from this as well, as indeed could Dan Parent-Smith. This could be his opportunity to get away as they trip over each other behind. They're going to be side by side, maybe 3 abreast towards Redgate Corner. Khalsi to the inside, Middleton in the middle. Langford's gone round the outside of both of them, though, while Steve Kite and Scott Wright arrive on the scene and think, what on earth have we got ourselves into here? This is no-holds-barred racing at the front of the pack.
Admittedly, I thought there were 2 lapped cars. I thought, no, looked in the order. It really is that all the battling has brought Steve and Scott Wright into the mix. Middleton getting his elbows out. I did also spot something else, which I'll get to in a second, because this battle is too intense, as Khalsi again holds the inside line for Middleton and holds the place. There was a bit of a... looks like there's been some contact while Khalsi's right rear bumper's almost been punched a little bit on the right rear corner. So I suspect maybe that's a telltale sign for maybe what may or may not have happened up at Coppice Corner. Oh, it's not a postcard. Maybe if one of these 3 do end up in 2nd and 3rd place in the final result, we can ask them to find out, see what happened in that sense. But we've got Steve Kite, who, remember, is in the club class, of course, and kind of doing a Sam Middleton from last year, getting involved and being ahead of Scott Wright. Through they go, and they're starting to pull away a bit here, because Langford has worked his way up to 2nd in Pro Class, 3rd overall, because Wang is now, last time we checked, 3.9 seconds out in front. There he is, still smoking as he goes through the Robert chicane to end lap 11. Under brakes they go, so still Parron Smith from Langford from Kelsey. It'll be a pro-class victory, at least for Parron Smith, but it won't be the obviously outright victory, so he'll still get the points, of course, being a points victory, but he won't be first across the line. It'll be that kind of pride of being first across the line rather than being first in your class, but nonetheless, it'll be important points to help him in the championship, and Langford needs that result too also, given that he's had now 2 DNFs from the first 6 races, which means he really is under pressure. Through Redgate they go. Further back, there's Ben Taylor scrapping with Graham Rumsey and Chris Ginn as they come onto the pit straight again. That's still them scrapping over 13th to 15th positions. So 4 minutes to go. Usually it's a 20-minute race, because there's been so much going on. Literally, time really has flown in this second MX-5 SuperCup race. Intriguing to see how it's gone back and forth on that point. But as Wang holds on in front by almost 5 seconds now at this point, this lot still haven't calmed down. Well, they haven't briefly, but I suspect it's about to kick off again, because Langford is having a little sniff around the inside line to get past Dan Parron Smith as Tolly gets a 5-second penalty for track limits further back in 9th place.
Yes, he does. So 3 3/4 minutes to go. And a defensive move again from Dan Parron Smith. Someone's in the gravel in the background up at McLean's in the next pack of cars. Oh, there we go.
It's Martin Tolley.
It is Martin Tolley, yes, who's already been pinged for track limits. I think he might have strayed just beyond the white lines there.
You think?
Didn't gain an advantage, but, you know, I'm just saying what I see.
So that shouldn't warrant a penalty then? So.
In my eyes, no, but then let's not get me started on the topic of track limits. Dan Parron Smith leads essentially out of the final chicane. Another one going beyond the white lines there. That was Scott Wright, who will lose a little momentum as a result. He and Steve Kite, whether voluntarily or not, I don't know, just backing away from this fight. If I were them, I would be keeping my distance as well, because this has got all of the ingredients for a pretty spicy final couple of laps. There's contact between Middleton and Calsey, whose car is getting more and more dog-eared as the laps go by. There's your leader, but the battle behind is for the race-winning points within the MX-5 SuperCup, and Dan Parron Smith really wants the victory here. He's got the advantage just over Langford, but they are starting now to knock lumps out of each other. This is now getting to crunch time in the race, where every move you make could be pivotal in the outcome of the race at the end of the 20 minutes. Parron Smith with an advantage. Can he keep hold of it then?
Of course, at a circuit, any of their championship momentum is absolutely key. That's the key word in the circuit, because it's such a fast-flowing circuit. Of course, it also holds the outright qualifying lap and race speed records of all time. No wonder it's a championship where you have to be really key on how much you use the car and the momentum that you gain. As Parron Smith goes a little out wide on the outside, it opened the door for Langford. And look at Kelsey and Middleton, they're all kind of screaming up the inside line. Parron's went from 1st to 4th in one move and lost 3 spots. All over each other again, as there goes Wang through the chicane to start his penultimate lap of the race. Yeah, because there's just under 2 minutes to go. He'll go through to start his second to last run. We need to go back to the chicane, because we go back towards see where our scrap for the SuperCup lead is. And Kelsey's gone through, so he has got past Langford out of all that sequence. Kite is the one that's kind of moving to the outside, thinking, I quite like my club class lead. I'm not going to put that at any risk. I've been impressed with Scott Wright as well. Battles or not, he's up into 5th position for former club class champion, up in pro. It's one of his most competitive races all day, and that was Parron Smith into the side of Middleton. Both make contact, both into the gravel. Oh dear, well, you said it was going to be quite tight and a crunch point was going to be key. Unfortunately, that was a crunch point of all the wrong conclusions. So Kelsey now once again leads in the pro class. Again, bodywork rubbing. His only major challenger now is going to be, in that sense, Thomas Langford. Of course, through all of that as well, it's opened up the door for Scott Wright to go onto the pro class podium. Oh, that's a sight and a half. Dan Parron Smith dejected, sat in the MX-5. I think they'll either cover it just with wave yellows down at Redgate. Of course, it's a slightly more dangerous position. I don't think they'll go. They're not going to go safety car. I don't even dare red flag it at that point, of course, with the end and not the final lap of the race. But now this is crucial, because Kelsey really is kind of upholding honours for Antrobus in a way, because he wants to try and keep up the points where he can. Langford needs the points, particularly the race victory. He really needs that win after retiring yesterday. But on the exit of Coppice Corner, Andy, Kelsey's getting away. Yeah, because Langford took the inside line, didn't make the move stick, and lost all of his momentum as a result. They could throw an early checkered flag here if they decide that's the best course of action. No checkered flag, so Zihuai Wang will go through onto his final lap, and there's going to be yellow flags into arguably the best overtaking opportunity on the lap down at Redgate Corner. So through come Kelsey and Langford. Langford then realistically is going to have one more shot at this. He's got to try and first of all get back to Kamal Kelsey, which with the power of the slipstream you wouldn't bet against, but that's a decent bit of daylight now between the two of them as Dan Parron Smith trudges away, keeping the helmet on, which I think is always telling after an accident. I suspect that one may well be discussed post-race. It was a bit of a desperate lunge, wasn't it? He wasn't happy that he went from 1st to 4th a couple of corners earlier, and wanted to try and get back towards the front of the group. At the front of the group now, though, it's Kelsey, and is Tom Langford gaining on this lap?
No, if anything, Kamal Kalzi's getting away, so I think Kamal Kalzi could be on here for essentially a double race victory. Might not be the first car to see the checkered flag, but it'll be the first point-scoring car to see the checkered flag. And he is consolidating this lead quite nicely. I think Langford really run out of pace a little bit on this final lap of the race. Another lap, and he might have been in danger of being caught by Scott Wright and Steve Kite, who are not that far behind. For Zihuai Wang, though, he turns into the final corners and he's going to claim the checkered flag. It is going to be an outright victory for the slightly smoky Mazda MX-5 Mark IV, and in pretty dominant fashion in the end. Wang wins at Donington Park, who is going to come home at the head of the pro class within the MX-5 SuperCup itself, though it's going to be Kamal Kalzi for the second race in a row who gets the maximum points, or the 100 points anyway. It's not quite maximum because I don't think he had the fastest lap within that class. No, Tom Langford definitely went quicker than him earlier on. With Wright and Kite coming home behind him. There is the 23 car of Martin Tolley through the final chicane after another entertaining race, that, Scott. And Kamal Kalzi on a roll here at Donington.
He is. It's like, what's the typical phrase? It's like buses. He waits for one pro-class victory, and genuinely two have come along at once. It might have been slightly fortuitous given that the likes of Parham Smith and Sam Middleton were running into each other at Redgate Corner. But nonetheless, you take the victories how they come. And of course, as well, I think that will be also very key points for Tom Langford, particularly when he also outscores Will Antrobus on top of that as well. And of course, Parham Smith didn't finish. Middleton did finish, but he was back in 9th after what happened. So obviously either carrying the damage or just lost a lot of time after the incident where he did clip Parham Smith and both of them went off. And whilst Middleton could continue, it was Parham Smith who had to pay the price of retiring. And I have to give a shout out to other people, and I hope actually they can pull in all the top four, because if they can pull in Scott Wright to have a chat, and there's going to be a bit of time, of course, to kind of do some clear up. Of course, we can have a chat to him taking his first pro-class podium, which is very well earned given the pace he's set. But I think, given he was quite excited at getting a third place yesterday, I think I'll be intrigued to see how Zihuai Wang is going to be feeling that he's taken an overall victory and also history in the championship. The first ever victory for a Mark IV, invitation or not, that's a landmark too.
Yeah, it was indeed, and an 8-second victory as well in the end for Wang over Kalzi, who wins in the SuperCup portion of the race, with Tom Langford in second within that class, third place for Scott Wright, whilst the club class and the club masters class actually victory go to Alex Kite, ahead of Will Antrobus, who again is left ruining an incident that cost him time there. And again, it was Redgate